Unsupervised machine learning is a machine learning technique for data that does not contain associated labels or categories. There are two main goals to unsupervised learning: clustering and dimensionality reduction. In this section of the tutorial, we will introduce two techniques. The first is k-means clustering, which will help cluster the data into categories. And the second is called principal components analysis, which will help reduce dimensionality within the data. The first thing we need to do is remove the species label from our data set. In unsupervised machine learning, there are no labels provided alongside the data. Since we're working with a data set that already has labels, we can remove these labels and see how well unsupervised machine learning models perform. In our new data set, we will select only bill length, bill depth, flipper length, and body mass variables, and remove labels like penguin species, penguin sex, and island location. Let's start off with a technique called k-means clustering. This unsupervised technique assigns each data observation to one of k clusters based on the nearest cluster centroid. In this technique, we need to specify the number of clusters we might expect from the data. We can do this manually or iteratively to find the optimal number of clusters based on the data. I've included a series of visualizations in the tutorial that I find really helpful in visualizing the process of assigning data observations to these cluster centroids. In this example, we will use a k value of 3 as a hypothesized number of clusters if we want to classify species. We can also use a k value of 2 if we want to classify a number of clusters based on penguin sex. For simplicity, we will only use flipper length and bill length observations. K-means clustering can handle more than 2 dimensions of data, but in order to compare the classifications to the visualizations that we made using the full data set, we'll just use 2 dimensions for now. Let's start in the k-means clustering code chunk. For the new unlabeled data set, I just want to extract flipper length and bill length variables. We can create another plot to visualize how bill length compares to flipper length by species. Running k-means clustering is as simple as using the k-means function in the R stats package. We have to set a seed, and then we can run the k-means function on our unlabeled dataset that contains just flipper length and bill length. We can set the number of centers, or k value, to 3, since we know that there are 3 different species of penguin in this dataset. I will also set the end start to 25, which tells the model to choose 25 random rows in the dataset as initial centers. Once we run the function, we can examine the structure of the resulting clusters and visualize them using the fviz_cluster function. If we eyeball the plot made with the actual species labels and the plot made from the k-means clustering, they generally are pretty similar. What if we try to cluster based on penguin sex, therefore using a k value of 2 instead of 3? We can create a similar whole dataset visualization based on penguin sex and repeat the k-means clustering. As we can see, there's more overlap between the two groups of penguins based on sex, so the k-means clustering plot doesn't look as similar to the real data. But what about if we have data where we don't know the true number of groups, as we so often do with multidimensional behavioral or neuroimaging data? Well, we can determine the optimal number of clusters based on our data using a few different methods. This process can be somewhat subjective, but we can use 3 different methods together to attempt to reach a consensus about the optimal k value. The first method is called the elbow method and aims to find a k that has the smallest within cluster sum of squares, or WSS. The total WSS measures how compact the clusters are. The elbow method examines the total WSS as a function of the number of clusters and aims to find an optimal number of clusters such that adding another cluster wouldn't improve the total WSS. We can use the fviz_nbclust function in the optimizing clusters WSS code chunk to run the elbow method on our unlabeled subset data. Based on the plot, it looks like the optimal number of clusters is 4, since the total WSS doesn't get much lower for 5 clusters compared to 4 clusters. Comparatively, there are notable jumps in the plot, down in total WSS from 1 to 2 clusters, 2 to 3 clusters, and even 3 to 4 clusters. We can also use a method called the average silhouette method, which measures the quality of a clustering. A high average silhouette width indicates good clustering. With this method, the optimal number for K is the number that maximizes the average silhouette over a range of possible values for K. We can use the fviz underscore and nbclust function again in the optimizing clusters ASM code chunk and specify the silhouette method. Based on this plot, it looks like the optimal number is 2 because 2 clusters corresponds to the maximum average silhouette width. The final method we'll try is a statistical method called the gap statistic method. This method compares the data against a null hypothesis. The gap statistic compares the total within intra-cluster variation for different values of K, with their expected values under a null reference distribution of the data. The optimal number of clusters is a value that maximizes the gap statistic and means that the clustering structure is far from a random uniform distribution of observations. We can use a function called clusGap in the optimizing clusters gap statistic code chunk. This method also suggests that 4 is the optimal number of clusters. This is consistent with the 4 clusters recommended by the elbow method, but inconsistent with the number recommended by the silhouette method. There's not really a clear consensus here, but we can be relatively confident that using a K value between 2 and 4 is likely optimal. And we can visualize how our data is classified based on these varying K values. In the KMC code chunk, we first repeat the k-means clustering using a K value of 2, 3, and 4. We can then plot these together to compare. Now, because we know that this data can be grouped into 3 known species, the recommended cluster of 4 doesn't actually make sense. But when we don't know the true category structure for the data, using these techniques to find an optimal number of clusters can be a critical step to identifying that underlying structure. Okay, now it's time for you to try k-means clustering for yourself. Using only the build depth and body mass variables, repeat the k-means clustering and the steps to find an optimal K. Does the number of optimal clusters change? Feel free to pause the video here while you try these examples yourself. All right, let's introduce the final technique in this tutorial, an unsupervised approach called principal components analysis, or PCA. This is a technique that reduces dimensionality in a data set. In the Palmer penguins data, we have 4 data dimensions: bill length, bill depth, body mass, and flipper length. As we just discussed with the k-means clustering, it's difficult to visualize all 4 of these data dimensions together. Using PCA, we can transform the data into lower dimensional space and collapse highly correlated variables together. We can then extract important information and visualize the data more easily. The first step within the PCA code chunk is to normalize all 4 variables in the unlabeled dataset. We can do this using the normalization function we created earlier on in the tutorial. Then we can compute and visualize a correlation matrix for all these variables to see which are highly correlated with each other. Like we saw during our data exploration, body mass and flipper length are highly correlated, so these may be good dimension reduction candidates. Next, we'll conduct our PCA using the prin-comp function in the stats.r package. We conduct the PCA using the correlation matrix in order to help the model identify these highly correlated variables. Using the summary function, we can see that the standard deviation, the proportion of variance in the data explained, and cumulative proportion of the variance explained for each newly created component. The number of components corresponds to the number of variables in the dataset. The first component accounts for 95.8% of the variance, and the second component accounts for 3.85%. So together, they account for nearly 100% of the total variance in the data. But what do these components even mean? We can investigate that using the loadings of each component. Component 1 has positive values for bill length, flipper length, and body mass, but a negative value for bill depth. This implies that penguins in component 1 are heavier and have longer flippers and bills, but shorter bill depths. Component 2 has positive values for bill length and bill depth, but negative values for flipper length and body mass. This implies that penguins in component 2 are lighter and smaller, but have bigger bills. We can visualize the relative importance of each component using something called a scree plot, and which can be used to determine the number of components to retain. Clearly, we want to retain components 1 and 2 because they explain some variance. They explain a lot of variance together. We'll also examine the data using a biplot to see similarities and differences between the samples and show the impact of each attribute on each of the components. We can gather a few pieces of information from this plot. Variables that are grouped together are positively correlated to each other. The higher the distance between the variable and the origin, the better represented that value is. And finally, the variables that are negatively correlated are displayed on opposite sides of the biplot's origin. Okay, now it's time for you to try out PCA. Let's pretend that the penguin species variable is the only label variable. If you recode penguin sex as a numeric variable, where 0 is male and 1 is female, what is similar or different in the PCA analysis?